Allow 5 minutes for questions. Over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So this presentation is entitled Knowledge Sharing and Boundary Conditions Within the Virtual Community, a study of free and open source software communities. And my name is Juana Du. I'm from Red Rose University. We are located on the west coast of Canada, British Columbia. So this is actually academic research, and it has been built upon my previous studies and publication in the area of knowledge management. So this particular research project actually looked at the knowledge sharing practice among professionals in the virtual community. Particularly, I have a chance to hear about experience and perspectives from professionals working in this open, free source software community. So this research presentation emphasizes the concept of knowledge boundary and explores the mechanism of knowledge sharing across boundaries within the virtual community, especially those professionals located at different geographic locations from different cultural, linguistic, professional background. So I'm fascinated to see what is a communication and a collaboration mechanism to bring people together to share knowledge across different boundaries. And from a communication perspective, I also applied the Bona Fide Group Theory in order to identify some special contextual and social factors that impact knowledge sharing practice across knowledge boundaries. Since this is a piece of academic research, I'd like to take a minute to talk a little bit about the theoretical framework, which lays a background for me to conduct this study. So in the last couple of decades, we see there is a fast growth of literature which address the importance of managed knowledge transfer across different boundaries, and in order to drive innovation and also performance of those virtual teams. And much of the literature and current study examined those complexity of boundary conditions in order to identify what is the most appropriate approach to transfer knowledge across different type of boundaries. So based on the literature review, we see there are conceptualization about the different type of knowledge boundaries and a different approach to transfer knowledge across those boundaries. So this study is built upon the current framework proposed by a scholar, Keller, in 2004, and he identified 3 different types of knowledge boundaries. And the first boundary is called the syntactic boundary, syntactic approach, which argues that it's very important to establish a shared and stable syntax in order to process information across boundaries. So this approach is pretty much used to for those codified knowledge, that is to say those explicit knowledge. And this approach builds upon the assumption that more information and communication would be better in order to facilitate knowledge transfer across boundary. And the second approach is called the semantic approach, which actually emphasizes that knowledge is embedded in specific contexts, and those contexts are also individual specific. So in order to facilitate knowledge transfer across semantic boundaries, it's very important to create those shared boundaries in order to establish that shared context to facilitate the knowledge transfer. And the third approach is called the pragmatic approach, which actually highlights the importance of understanding the differences in practice that emphasize to put knowledge into practice, which is also embedded in a specific context. So in order to facilitate the knowledge transfer across pragmatic boundary, it also requires more engaged and deeper understanding and sharing in order to establish a shared context to facilitate knowledge practice. So this pragmatic approach of knowledge transfer is also applied in this research to examine the knowledge practice of professionals in this open, free SaaS software community. And in order to understand the communication mechanism, how people communicate and coordinate in those virtual environments, I also looked at the Bona Fide Group Theory, as this theory provides a very unique framework, and it looked into the interaction and collaboration of those naturally formed small teams. And those teams have two special characteristics. The first feature is there are flexible boundaries of those teams, which means the team members may have several different memberships. And those team members work together on specific task-oriented, it's a task-oriented teams, so in that sense, they share knowledge and to achieve a shared sense of boundary. So a little bit more description about the different features of this to look at small group dynamics from the Bona Fide Group Theory. So first, it's permeable boundaries, as memberships constantly change and switch group memberships. And second is about the group independence. So those are very task-oriented groups, and the groups really are influenced by their surrounding environment, such as the other groups or the social organizational structures that provide resource. And in the presentation at this conference, we also heard about the different community apply those open source software for open street mapping or for community engagement. So those are all great examples to demonstrate those group interdependence. And another feature is the multiple memberships, as individuals are often members of multiple groups simultaneously. So this actually create those competing loyalty and influence their practice to share knowledge, to collaborate. So build upon this research framework in order to identify the communication mechanism in knowledge transfer practice of those professionals in virtual community. There are several goals of this research. The main goal is in order to identify some social and contextual factors that would impact the knowledge transfer practice within this community. And also, this research emphasizes the unique mechanism of communication and collaboration within this community in order to further explain the interdependence within this shared context. And the third goal is to, by collecting empirical data, by conducting in-depth interviews with professionals, it actually offers further insights to look into those novel knowledge boundary features as defined by the advancement of AI technology. So in this slide, I listed the two main research questions. The first question is to look at what types of boundary condition and knowledge transfer are relevant in this particular context of collaborative innovation in virtual community of professionals. And the second research question is to identify the communication mechanism in order to better facilitate the knowledge transfer given the identified boundary conditions. So a little bit about the research method. I had the pleasure to conduct some in-depth interviews and talk to the professionals working in this free and open source software community to hear about their experience, their perspectives. And those professionals come from very diverse geography, culture, and linguistic background. So I actually started the in-depth interviews during the FOSS4G conference, the European conference in Mostar this July. So built upon those initial interviews, I was able to conduct the second round of interviews and talk to professionals hear about their experience. So all of those interviews was recorded and transcribed, and the data was analyzed with the software of Max QDA. So during those in-depth interviews, I asked some questions such as their communication experience of collaborating with professionals. I also want to understand their individual motives in order to collaborate, particularly from a cross-cultural perspective. I also had a chance to ask questions about their perceptions and experience with the recent development of AI-assisted communication tools, and to see how those language tools, those communication tools actually help them or impact them to further collaborate, communicate with professionals across cultural linguistic boundaries. And I also had a chance to ask them questions about their perception of knowledge community and the community culture and their personal experience related to the community. Okay, so here comes the main findings. I was able to identify some major themes, and in order to come up with this conceptual model, and I saw those professionals act as knowledge actors to transfer knowledge across pragmatic boundaries, which is featured as with very high novelty of knowledge. And I was able to identify some communication mechanisms that impact those professionals to share knowledge to cross boundaries. And I also looked at some contextual factors as people were describing about their experience working with this virtual community. So there are some assumptions of professionalism. There developed some shared understanding goals. So those are some important factors as part of this context. And look at a more broad picture of this knowledge community, this virtual community. There are also two particular features with this knowledge community. As mentioned, it's a permeable boundaries. These task-based teams collaborate, and it's also very much task independence. Basically, I was able to develop 4 different propositions which describe about those interplay, those interconnections between different themes in that model just presented. So the first proposition is task interdependence serve as a communication mechanism in this virtual community, which brings group members to communicate and exchange knowledge across pragmatic boundaries. Particularly, we see that those groups are very much task-oriented and solution-oriented too. So those actually create the context for professionals to share practice and to transfer knowledge across boundaries. And it's also identified that there is a very high level of task interdependence among those different task-oriented groups. So those task interdependence also lead the group members to establish the communication protocols and some shared communication process platforms that also facilitate knowledge transfer. And the second proposition is particular about the boundary conditions. As most of the interviewees described, this boundary conditions feature very high novelty. So from the conversations and the in-depth interviews with those interviewees, I was able to identify a particular knowledge transfer approach that is associated with pragmatic boundary with a high degree of novelty in this particular study that provides a condition for knowledge transfer in virtual community. And the third proposition is shared values and professionalism create a dynamic context for knowledge transfer across a pragmatic boundary of high novelty. And during the interviews, I heard multiple people mention about the assumption of professionalism to work in this virtual community. And people were describing their experience and expectation to receive response, to receive answer in very timely manner, and also those demonstrated their expectation and assumptions of professionalism. And this assumption of professionalism serve as a norm of practice that invite those professionals as knowledge actors to openly share knowledge. And as a result, professionalism also serve as a community practice. It's a norm of the community practice which embraces the professional identity of those individuals to transfer knowledge, to collaborate in this virtual community. And the last proposition is specific about those AI-assisted communication tools. As there are mixed voices regarding the impact of those AI-assisted communication tools, some people really love to use it, but there are also mixed voices. In general, there is an increased use of AI-assisted communication tools in the virtual community. And comparing with the more traditional communication tools, those AI-assisted communication tools actually help to create a shared context. So it also brings those knowledge actors, those professionals from different cultural and linguistic background in order to transfer to share knowledge. And it actually also enhances the self-efficacy of those professionals as knowledge actors in the community. So to conclude the findings from those empirical data, I was able to identify some contextual and some social factors that impact knowledge transfer across pragmatic boundaries. And also the results shed some lights to further understand the task independence with virtual community that also was impacted and reshaped by the advancement of the AI technology, the use of AI-assisted communication tools. And the research findings also lend further support to understanding the motivations and commitment of those professional members within the community, and how their commitment actually impact the professional perceptions of the permeable boundaries within community, as well as the impact on task interdependence. Okay, so how the research findings could inform our practice, and what are those possible practical implications from those empirical analysis? As I see, the research findings offer several practical implications for professionals working in virtual community, as it highlights the importance of communication mechanism. And it impacts on members' commitment and identification within the community. So to further understand this mechanism would help to develop better commitment of members to identify with the virtual community from a cross-cultural perspective. And it also, from a communication perspective, there are practical implications to establish an effective process with shared communication tools in order to accommodate the novelty of the boundaries. And the other practical implication is about to further understand the permeable boundaries, which can help the community members better collaborate and engage in knowledge sharing practice. It also suggests to establish necessary protocols and procedures for new members to learn and to socialize in those knowledge transfer practice of the virtual community. And last but not the least, the practical implication is to encourage community practice to embrace a culturally diverse, linguistic, inclusive, and sustainable community culture. So I'll just skip this slide. And I want to take the chance to say thank you very much for the participation in this research project. And it's a great pleasure to hear about perspectives and to learn from those professionals. And I'll just pause here and welcome any questions and discussions. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody have a question? Then I will. I'm curious about how you came to pick our community, our community, to do this research. What was it that, because you come from a school of business, what was it that, or did somebody suggest you look at our community as a research project?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have been studying knowledge transfer in previous years, and I looked at different contexts such as incubators, industry parks. I also looked at different sort of virtual communities of professionals. And this actually, this research started from my experience, to attend the FOSS4G Europe conference in that city. So I got a chance to talk to people and learn about their experience. Yeah. So I thought this is really fascinating because this is a very open, very collaborative virtual community.
Virtual community, exactly. Right. We live in a virtual world, we work in the virtual world, and we support open source. So it was a gift as a community, as opposed to, let's say, I was trying to think of a profession like the medical world, which is only now in Australia embracing online medicine, treatment. Previously, that would all have been done face to face, so there would be no knowledge sharing with others in a virtual space. But our profession is all about that. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. Sorry, anybody else want to have a say? I don't want to take over that.
I also see there are a lot of interdependence. Yes. Among different groups, different task groups, different individuals, different professionals. So that's also very, really fascinating to see. That also speaks to the community I'm interested, because the boundary is keep changing, it's flexible, but people are very much committed to the community
But it's
practice.
almost lacking boundaries, because in the sense that we call ourselves open, we don't create fences or barriers. We try and get rid of them in the process of expanding our reach, so to speak.
The diversity culture and also the very inclusive linguistic
diverse
perspective.
Wow. Okay. If there are no more questions, I will just say thank you very much. And if you could join me in thanking Bona.